episode number 74, where you join myself, Chris, and my lovely co-host, the man of many pixels, Mr. Richie.
Hello there.
Hello. And we are missing one of our hosts, of course, the techie teacher himself. Tom has had something crop up last minute, so he's not able to join us today, but that doesn't mean we don't have a great episode lined up for you lovely viewers and listeners out there. On this week's show, we'll be discussing big money moves in the games industry, Stadia potentially being in trouble with a class action lawsuit. If you read the papers, Richie, that's apparently
naughty,
a thing.
naughty Stadia, naughty.
And will we be seeing Gotham City and the wizarding world of Hogwarts coming to Stadia later this year? We're going to be talking about all that and much, much more on the Sounds of Stadia podcast, the longest running Stadia podcast this side of Google Maps. And Richie, before we get into it all, let's just take a moment and thank our listeners out there. And our viewers.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in to the Sounds of Stadia channel and the podcast on whatever platform you choose to listen or watch us on. We do appreciate your love and support. And if you are new to the show, for all your gaming and Stadia news, do give us a click down below. Give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, a review on one of the podcast platforms. It's massively appreciated. And it helps us bring better content to you. Big shout out to our patrons as well over on patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia, where they donate, support us that little bit further, just like you can. You get Richie's show, our show as well, the Sounds of Stadia SideQuest.
Yes, it's not just
your show. You own it. You have legal rights.
The Richie show.
The Richie show. He did try to name it that, ladies and gentlemen. We had to fight him to call it SideQuest. But yes, you can get that up to 5 days early over there, or you can wait for it on free feeds as well. Plus exclusive gaming chat and discussions. Go check that out if you feel so inclined to. But a bit of housekeeping just to wrap things up. We've had a busy last week celebrating our 1K mark still. We promised we'd bring you a bit of an extended live stream. So, Richie, you and me jumped into Grid on Thursday with Tom and the rest of our community. We did some racing out there on the blacktop. You
can call it racing. You could call it continuous crashing if you'd prefer.
Continuous crashing, it was indeed. We all learned very, very quickly the cutthroat world of the grid. And we were joined by loads of you. We had a thrilling time. We had loads of laughs. And if you've not checked out Grid already, it's very much just arcade action. I didn't realise until like an hour and a half into streaming you could reset yourself on the track.
Oh, same. Tom kept that between.
Yeah, he did. I'm sat there trying to do a 3.10 in the middle of a 20-car pile-up, and he's just resetting and flashing through. Yeah. But it was great, and I'm sure 100% we'll be doing more grid streams or some kind of racing streams going forward because it was an amazing.
I almost landed a double kickflip.
A double kickflip. We might actually get that clip and somehow insert it into the video here.
It's in the Discord. It's in the Discord.
It's in the Discord, so you could check. Yeah,
in fact, I think Crazy Bad dropped an alternate view as well. So.
Oh yeah, you've got several crashing angles of all of us flipping out big time. But that was one of the things we did. Then, as a follow-up special, as promised, myself and you, Richie, we played Little Nightmares 2, one of your pro games for this past month, of course. In its entirety, Richie, we cracked open some beers, we sat down this past Friday, and we blazed through Little Nightmares 2 from Tarsier Studio, published by Bandai Namco. And we had a great time. It's a wonderful little game. Of course, we get it for free, so you'll save yourself £25, $30 if you are so inclined to claim it as soon as you can. And loads of little creepy puzzles in there. I, for one, hate yellow anoraks more now than I ever have done, thanks to that game. But it was great. Have you got any quick hot takes from the game?
No, I think it's definitely worth the price of your pro membership for a month. If you're interested in it, and you're looking at the price tag and think, well, you could go and pay £25 on like PlayStation, or you could pay $9.99 and get 1 month of Stadia Pro.
Yeah, I think it's quite understated that because you could go, like, I don't think we'll ever see it with big titles. Like, you're not going to see an Assassin's Creed drop free on Stadia day one. I know we theorised about, imagine if Cyberpunk was free on Stadia. That was never going to happen. But these little kind of mid-tier titles that are around the £25-30 mark, if we get them free launch day with Stadia Pro, that just creates better and better value. It's similar to Xbox Game Pass in a way, when you get the exclusive first party games day and date, like Sea of Thieves and Crackdown and Halo and such. Like that is a big value proposition, and it'll be interesting to see if we get more of these as time goes on. Aside from that, though, you've been playing. I think you wrapped up with Rise of Tomb Raider this week.
Yep, finally wrapped up in Rise of Tomb Raider. I must say though, first one's better than Rise.
Ooh, I did see someone put a poll out about that this week. Which Tomb Raider is the best? I don't know if it was somebody trying to make a decision on buying the games on Facebook somewhere.
Yeah.
Which I would always recommend start at the beginning.
Yeah, I think the cast of characters and the setting for me in the first one, there's a bit more going on as well. Lara develops as a character in the first one. I don't think she really did in the second one too much.
I would.
But it was still a really good game, worth playing. But yeah, I preferred the first one personally.
Have you got number 3?
I've got number 3 on multiple platforms. I'm not going to start it yet though.
Yeah, a bit of a palate cleanser probably required. Yeah. What are you moving on to next as a palate cleanser then?
I have moved on to. I've decided to be a Stadia trader for a while. I moved on to Control on PS5. So I've got the Ultimate Edition as part of my PS Plus subscription, and it's a game that you personally have been telling me to play for a long time.
Yeah, game of the year. I think
this was the time. This was the time.
Was it my game of the year? I can never remember if I give it to this or Jedi Fallen Order. I think picked it at the end of the year. But both amazing games. And again, Richie, you're not a Stadia trader. You're just going to enjoy it wherever makes you the most happy. And obviously, you can't play it on Stadia right now. So
I must admit, it's nice. Although I do stand by the Google Stadia controller is the most comfortable controller I've ever used. Much more comfortable than the DualSense. But them adaptive triggers, they're good.
Yeah, I'm having a similar thing. So I've played, I'm playing a lot at the moment, but after some long playing time with the DualSense 5, I don't know about you, but my left thumb seems to be aching for some reason. I don't know whether it's the games I'm playing, I'm holding down maybe the analog stick a bit more, or just the nature of it being a bigger controller. But I have found the Stadia controller to be a more comfortable fit in hand, as opposed to the dual for long play sessions, which I know a lot of our audience out there do sink in many, many hours at a time, as a lot of gamers do. But yeah, just some weird pain in my leg. Either I'm getting old, or the controller's like my hand's trying to adjust to the new shape, and it's not liking it as much.
Yeah, I just think as soon as I pick up the Stadia controller compared to the DualSense, I just think it feels more comfortable. And they've got some like squared off edges on the DualSense, which they're annoying.
Yeah, I get what you mean. But interesting. We've theorized about new controllers. Control as coming soon. And my final game, I'm working my way through Immortals still. I've had some time off this week, so I've been allowed to sink some proper gaming hours into that. I'm feeling I'm about 2/3 through the game already. I know it's a lot shorter than Assassin's Creed Valhalla, thankfully. But I'm having a great time exploring Greek mythology. And I've said before, but the comedy in that game is just right up my street. I love the way Zeus and Prometheus talk over every quest line you start. They have like a little bit of banter back and forth about what's going on and why some gods jilted other gods. And it just harks back to my knowledge of Greek mythology. And it's interesting how it's telling the stories again, but through like a different lens. And the combat's fun. The puzzle room's very similar to Zelda, which we've knew about since the game was announced. Having a great time figuring it out and just making me think a little bit more than maybe I had to in Valhalla, which was very much just hack and slash and destroy. Aside from setting a crate or a barrel on fire, this has got a lot more thought process that goes into. But yeah, if you've not checked out Immortals, I think it's currently on sale on Stadia actually. So it might be the ultimate edition. I think is down to £7 from £84, which it usually is. So there's a big chunk price off. But go check out those sales. That they happen all the time. We often see people on social media, Richie, asking like, should I buy this game now or should I wait? And quite frankly, if you're not in any rush, that we get Stadia discount sales like every other week, it feels like.
I think it's with sales and gaming, it's just it's the same wherever. It's like if you want to play the game now and it's brand new out, you're probably gonna end up paying more than if you're happy to wait.
Yeah,
because games do go on sale a lot, or if in the physical space, not necessarily in Stadia, the price on Amazon will drop massively for a game within 6 months.
Yeah, it's just
one of them things.
It's an interesting one, and we probably will talk about at some point in the future as the price of games increases, because over on PlayStation, Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart got it announced this week was official lockdown in June, and the price is £69.99. That must be like $80, give or take. And I, for one, who loved the last game, I'm looking at that game and thinking, I don't want to spend just short of £70 on that title.
Yeah.
There's something about it which I think that's a lot of money. That's so close to 100 for me. I think I'm happy to wait, and I'm starting to reach that point. I don't know whether it's the point in my life I just value money differently or the title in itself, but I don't want to pay £70 for every single new game I want to play. That's a bit much. It's a bit of a stretch. And is this trickling over to Stadia? Because there's a game we've got coming up in the news that was announced with a day and date launch for Stadia this week. It's not as steep, but obviously the price of gaming is getting higher and higher year on year.
I think that's actually probably a good conversation for SideQuest, actually, the cost of gaming.
Add it to the bag, Richie. Add it to the bag.
I already have.
And we'll definitely get to that one. So thank you everyone once again for joining in. Richie, I guess in Tom's absence, I'll hand it over to you on the fly to give us the introduction to the...
You know what? I didn't even consider how to do this. The Super Sexy Special Stadia Story segment, aka The News.
The news indeed. Brought to you by our Patreon sponsor this week, the one and only Kumnar. We're giving you a special shout out this week.
What a hero.
What a hero. You were with us for the entirety of our little Nightmares stream, I believe. I think you played half of the game already. You went away, finished the game, and rejoined us while we were on in the background, and you helped us out so much with certain puzzles.
Especially as the clock was ticking and we were like past midnight and we were getting tired and drunk.
Yeah, the stream, we kind of didn't even mention it, but the game itself, we managed to complete it in around 6 hours. I would say
6 hours.
Take the introduction off the stream, take the outro off the stream, and the credits at the end. I'd say pretty much bang on the 6 hour mark we finished the game. I did see online it was roughly 6 to 7 hours, so we've came in under par, Richie, as far as I'm concerned. We did ourselves justice in terms of the puzzles. We made good time, but good time, 6 hours, a couple of beers in, and very early into the hours of the morning.
It was an enjoyable evening.
Oh, 100%. I had a great time, and I enjoy the games all the more for playing through it with you and the audience alongside with us. But special shout out to Kumnar for jumping in there. So you were sponsoring the news this week, Kumnar. Thank you for your support over on patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia. Good couple of news stories up on the dock this week, Richie. We'll delve into some more than others. Some of them we will pass over because we've either treaded that ground already, or you've probably, if you are tied into the Stadia news, you're probably sick to death of talking about this kind of stuff. And here at Sounds of Stadia, we do always try to reflect positively on the games industry. We don't want the news to become like the normal news on TV where it's just negative. We're here to play games, enjoy games, so we'll delve into these stories, but we won't spend too long on the nitty-gritty of them. There's plenty of other content creators out there who will do a full deep dive, and there's plenty of news articles out there for you to read. And if you want to get into the negative side of things, just jump over to social media, and I guarantee you'll find a thread or two over on there, but that's not what we're here for. So story number one on the week, Richie, kind of the biggest Stadia-specific story, is the closure once again of Stadia Games and Entertainment that happened a little while back. We've known about for some time. But what we should probably focus on is we had a Kotaku article drop this week that apparently the Stadia staff, all the unfortunate people who were laid off and have hopefully found new jobs. I've seen a couple of people on Twitter who found jobs over at PlayStation and alike already. So congratulations to you for landing on your feet, and hopefully the rest will do so. Will follow suit. But yeah, Kotaku had an article out basically chasing up on... Now, obviously, everyone's been laid off. They're probably happy to talk about what was going on behind the scenes a bit more.
Yeah.
And we've had some insight. Apparently, the 27th of January, which was a mere couple of days before all the layoffs happened, apparently, big head of the studios, Phil Harrison, sent out
We should clarify that actually Google haven't laid off the staff. They've committed to find them new positions. So, but I think it's more that you've come into work and got told your job's gone, then you're probably a bit annoyed, even if you are going to still be employed. So you might be a bit more open to talking to journalists as to just...
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We said on our kind of breaking news episode that with all kind of redundancies, I think legally in the UK, if your company's not closing down, you do have to try and find them a job within the business or offering them redundancy. So that has to be something that's balanced up. But we don't know what it's like, and I don't know what it's like anywhere in the States.
Yeah.
And how all those internal workings do. But yeah, so Vice President and General Manager Phil Harrison, who's not getting the best name for himself, quite frankly, at the moment, has more kind of troublesome lauded on him because he sent out an email several days earlier saying Stadia Games Entertainment has made great progress building a diverse and talented team and establishing a strong lineup of Stadia exclusive games. This is on the 27th of January. We will confirm the SG&E, Stadia Games Entertainment, investment envelope shortly, which will in turn inform SG&E strategy and 2021 objectives and results. Essentially, less than a week prior, he's sending an email out to all of the Stadia Games and team to say, great for your team building so far. You're very talented. You've got such a strong lineup. We're excited essentially for what the future holds. We'll give you a rundown of what the future strategy and objectives are going to be soon. And then immediately the week after lays everybody off.
The question for me is, when he sent that initial email, did he already know that SG&E were already on the chopping block at that point? Because that is important for how you frame, how you view this. Because if he didn't know that Stadia Games and Entertainment could be potentially closed down at that point, then all he's done then is sent an email to his staff basically praising their work. Yeah, and unfortunately, then later turned out to be his job to break the bad news. Yeah. However, if he knew...
Well, he does.
That's a bit of... If he knew that Stadia Games and Entertainment were potentially going to be closed down when he sent that email, that's just a dick move.
Yeah, later in the article, they do go on to say there was a Q&A that followed... Rightly so, with all redundancies and layoffs, the business usually has to interview people one-on-one or have a Q&A. Yeah. There's usually a long list of questions that staff rightly so have, and why is this happening? What's going to happen with my job role? And as they repurpose and move the chess pieces around, essentially.
Yeah.
And one of the things that did come out of it was, Harrison expressed regret over the misleading statements made in his earlier email. According to 4 sources with knowledge of the call, so ex-employees we can imagine, are current still getting repurposed. When asked what changed from the week prior, Harrison admitted nothing had changed. To those on the call, we knew. So he did know.
So then, well, that's not misleading then. If he's literally, and I'm quoting from the Kotaku article here, when I find it in a second. Stadia Games and Entertainment has made great progress building a diverse and talented team and establishing a strong lineup of Stadia exclusive games. That's not a misleading statement. That doesn't even suggest slightly that, oh, by the way, you're going to get fired next week. That suggests everything's all good.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing, and we've spoke offline at length about it, that the harsh reality of, because it's a business, and obviously humans are involved in lives, and people have uprooted their entire lives to move across country potentially for this, and it's obviously terrible news, full stop.
Yeah. As
a business... You can't tell your staff about redundancies or layoffs ahead of an official date, because if that news gets out ahead of time, that's going to have a worse effect on other people's lives and business. And I from personal experience, have been through redundancies before, when, yes, you do all tend to get pulled onto a national or a company-wide call when the announcement is told to everybody at once. You can't risk going to one department and saying, guys, there's going to be layoffs in a few weeks, and then going to another department and saying, right, really sorry, there's going to be some layoffs, and then tomorrow you're going to call a bunch of other people, because people talk and that will be circulated, and that's just then rumours begin and anxiety sets in, and
rumours spread, usually without the full context of the situation, so then people fill in the gaps with speculation, and it gets worse and worse and worse.
100%.
So my question though is, if he knew this, why is he sending an email a couple of days before praising their work? That's where, for me, that feels a bit tone deaf of the situation. It's
you would have been better saying nothing.
Yeah. Genuinely, you're probably better off saying nothing. I don't know the situation why. Maybe it was a scheduled email, something that
like a weekly routine blog from Phil. Almost.
Yeah, but then I don't know. It's hard to say, but it just feels like not a great way to treat people. Like, one week you're praising their work, next week you're telling them, by the way, your job now doesn't exist. We'll find something else for you.
Yeah,
if we can.
Certainly. And out of the article as well, Jade Raymond, obviously we know, has moved out straight away. She did come out stating that she's proud of the team she built at Stadia Games Entertainment and the groundbreaking work on exclusive games for the platform, which, again, it's a shame we're not going to see these, because everyone who worked on the project seems disappointed. Not so much because of the job situation, but because they were genuinely proud and excited on what they were working on, which was obviously never going to see the light of day now. She said it was a difficult decision to take on a new opportunity, and I'll be forever grateful to this team for everything we've learned and achieved together. So there's obviously a sense of camaraderie between that particular department, and they all seemed genuinely shocked at the news. So
I think it's how I speculated before. I don't think this is a case of they're doing bad work. I think this is more of just Stadia reposition themselves in terms of the finances of the business, with the ballooning cost of game development and the cost of getting the studio up and running. That I think they're probably looking at it and going, well, it's our budget only goes so far. We talk about Google as if they've got infinite money. That's just not true. They do have finite resources.
Close to infinite.
Close to infinite, but Stadia is only one part of Google.
That is true. Yeah.
So they'll have a budget to work to.
Yeah.
And they've probably thought we're better off moving resources into other areas. That's what I'm generally hoping.
Yeah, and I guess part of his statement, Phil's email initially, he does say that we'll be looking at the investment envelope shortly, which will in turn inform this SG&E strategy for 2021 objectives and key results.
Yeah.
I read that as here's the email telling you you're doing well. Later in the week, he gets the strategy and objective and key results from the powers that be hiring Google, and that strategy clearly is not supporting internal studios, and the redundancies are made. So Phil might have known, but again, there's so much stuff we don't really know. It's all conjecture and theory, so we won't spend any more time digging deep into this. Obviously, we know it sucks. We know as gamers we wanted to see those exclusive titles. It is a bit of a joke that Google didn't understand the costs. I know in their initial statement they said the rising cost. Come on. Like me and you, Richie, could have told them it was going to cost hundreds of millions to get this up and running, with a long roadmap and a 4 or 5 year development cycle potentially being a possibility. It shows naivety when anyone lifted up a rock could have told them that.
I don't get why there is that naivety though, because they had some fantastically talented people in the team. Like Phil Harrison has been around. He's been at Sony. He's been at Xbox. He should have a good understanding of the cost it takes to establish a studio, even if he's never done it.
Yeah.
Jade Raymond, she's headed up several studios and big games. They have that knowledge and experience around them. So if they were surprised by the costs, that does seem weird.
I would love to know what actually happened, because you're totally right. Like the likes of Shannon Studstill as well. Like this is veterans of the gaming industry, and you've got to imagine they all sat around a table before the pandemic and everything, and genuinely were all in a room together, grabbed a coffee, had some little muffins on the side, some little Google muffins and everything, and laid out like what is this going to look like? What is the dream? What is the roadmap? Yeah. And they surely they discuss finances and costings at some point. Like again, Shannon come from God of War will have said, well, he'll have had an insight into God of War costs us X amount of 100 million to make.
Yeah, and that was an already established studio and an already established IP. We had a good base. I mean, they reinvented the God of War series with that game, but they still had a good base to work from.
Yeah, so I guess it obviously terrible news for everyone involved. Hopefully, we said before, we'll echo that. Hopefully, they all land on their feet, and I'm sure that by the sounds of they're an incredibly talented bunch, and I'm sure there's going to be people headhunting them out there. So best of luck to everybody seeking jobs, and hopefully you'll land on your feet essentially. But hopefully, I don't think we'll see more clarity on this. I mean, a few weeks have passed now. We've not heard anything.
I don't know. I think this is a story that might just keep resurfacing as more information comes out. Like there'll be still some employees, imagine, at Google at the moment, when maybe once they've left, or whatever the length of time it is that they have to basically on media blackout, then suddenly start talking more press. But I don't know. It's hard to know.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out. So moving on to our second story of the week, we've got news from the legal side of the world. This is the story I mentioned at the top of the show. I don't really want to spend much time on, but our friends over at 9 to 5 Google have picked up on classaction.org, an article basically saying in New York that a lawsuit has been filed against Stadia for misrepresentation of the actual product in itself, dating right back to the initial launch in regards to 4K 60 frames per second, saying that it was mismarketing. The general public and the consumer were lied to, and they've basically filed lawsuits. I've seen a couple of people running with this on social media, but I think from my point of view, and I don't want to speak for you, Richie, as well, but a class action lawsuit doesn't mean jack shit until it actually goes to court and something comes about it. I see it get flung around currently now with like Sony's DualSense. Class action lawsuit filed against Sony for DualSense drift. It's basically anyone can get a lawyer and sue somebody, and then it becomes a class action lawsuit. But putting that as a headline makes it sound far more serious than it might end up ever being.
Especially when it comes to something like something like marketing. A marketing point is like, well, you didn't mention like the DualSense would have joystick drift, and it's like, yeah, but like it's new technology. There's going to be issues. It sucks.
It's all kind of
I don't know.
Marketing interpretation and small print. It's the side of the world that's very boring, and I don't have any expertise. And so anyone out there who is trained in this and is thinking like, you're wrong, Chris, a class action lawsuit is terrible. Like, I get that side of things. For me as a consumer, it's just big scary words you can put on a headline that makes the story blown out of proportion than what it ever might. They'll settle out of case or something, right?
Yeah. What I don't get about this lawsuit though is, of all the things in like the first year of Stadia that you might consider misrepresentation, the 4K 60 stuff, I think is probably the weakest of them all. Because if you think back to the initial GDC talk, there's all like things like features we have now, like state share, crowd choice, crowd play, and stuff like that. They backtracked on that very quickly just before the founders launch.
Yeah.
So like that's the stuff where I think you could have a reasonable case where you could argue like, you've been misled me. You said all these features were going to be there, and now you tell me they're not. That's where I could see a different story. But when it's like anything, like when I don't feel like as a founder that they mismarketed the 4K 60 stuff, because ultimately I think, because I have that understanding, that's an upper limit. It's like the target, but it's an up to, and it's down to the developers ultimately at some point to get it working at that. Google on their end say they can support it, but the software needs to be coded to work like that.
Yeah.
It sucks when you don't get it, but
it's one of those things with technology.
Yeah.
There's always lots of between it. There is things in the article that say Harrison assured everyone that the games on the Stadia platform would support 4K resolution at launch. And again, is that just Phil talking out of term during an interview? He's still human at the end of the day, believe it or not, everyone.
Yeah.
There's stuff in there that says Google quietly changed their terms and conditions, and it's like, did they quietly change it, or like did they need to make an announcement?
Just change it?
They
they quietly changed the terms and conditions just before launch. It was like, they're probably going through the final revision of the terms and conditions before launch. I don't know. I don't feel this is a loss. As I said, if you went after them for the missing features that they advertised, that's one thing. But on this one, I don't think you have a case, personally.
Yeah, and again, like we said at the beginning, you can sue anyone for anything pretty much nowadays. But
I know one of the games quoted was Destiny, but it might have been when he's on stage announcing like Destiny's going to be 4K 60. That might have been the best information he had at that time. Bungie might have come back to them a couple of months later and go, "We can't get it. We're not going to hit that for launch."
Yeah, sorry about that, Phil, but you might need to update what you're saying. And that happens in business full stop with technology, where stuff doesn't work in real life as much as it would in theory. Yeah. Doesn't mean it came from a lying, everything's dark and secret, we're trying to get as many people in the door as possible. Ha ha ha. It could just be a case of, look, we tried our best, we thought we couldn't do it in time, or it wasn't quite as possible as we hoped. We've had to tweak our terms and conditions to do it. If that makes us sound like we're trying to defend Stadia in a way, obviously no, 100% we're here for the consumer. Everything should be honest and upfront, but I also understand how business and technology and stuff evolves over time, and stuff has to change in marketing terms. And at the end of the day, they do have to promote their product. That is, which we've lauded them about not doing for so long. Marketing Stadia is you kind of can't really win. It's a double-edged sword when it comes to.
I mean, if they have actually breached marketing regulations, then they should get sued.
Yeah, you're held to term for it, and you'll be fined by whatever regulators hold them to account. But
which is why I kind of say, like, if it was the missing features that they rolled back on immediately before launch, I think you've got more of an argument on that.
Yeah, you promised us X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And of course, it's still free to use. So, what would they do? Refund Pro for like the 18 months?
I don't know.
We'll see.
Give us Outriders for free.
Yeah. If you're out there and you are a lawyer, let us know what your thoughts on that are down in the comments below. We don't profess to be anywhere near that kind of studied, learned degree, so let us know if it is a genuine case. But again, Google's probably big enough; they've got probably the best lawyers on their side of the case as well. So I don't think we'll see anything more come of. Moving on to some exciting actual games news, Richie. We learned this week that Outriders from Square Enix will be arriving day and date, and it's not an April Fool's, April 1st. So Outriders, just to clarify for everyone out there, it's the 1 to 3 player co-op RPG shooter set in an original and dark, desperate sci-fi universe. And essentially, you join up with your crew, and by the looks of it, we've said before, very kind of a mixed match between The Division mixed with Destiny. However, it's not online, which is we held our hands up in one of your retcon rituals and basically said,
yes,
we were under the impression it was just going to be like Destiny, and a couple of people, rightly so, corrected us in the comments and said, actually, it's a much more narrative-driven story with just the option to play as 3 players, with albeit gear and loot the same as you would get in Destiny. So it's kind of close maybe to Borderlands.
I don't know. In some ways, but Borderlands is first person, this is third person. It seems to be a mixed match of different game styles, which could be good. It could work. My initial thoughts on Outriders, though, it still doesn't jump out at me.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. When I watched the initial trailer, first of all, I was surprised it was Square Enix. Then I just felt that it just seems a bit generic, and my mood hasn't really changed on it yet. I personally think it might be getting a bit more attention because currently things are a bit quiet in their big new releases.
Well, funny you should say that, because that's my take on it. Is obviously it was delayed from last year, and then it finally got its official locked in date. As we hit this kind of drought of games while we wait for Far Cry and the rest of the kind of industry going into 2021. I, for one, have slowly built some intrigue towards this game over the last week or so. I think when I saw the announcement of the date and I watched the new trailer, and in the fact it's 3 player, I'm thinking that could be ideal for you, me, and Tom to jump into. And I kind of have to wait for reviews. Part of the story that we've not mentioned yet is that this game is getting a demo on other platforms, but not Stadia. So I did see the Outriders team confirm on Twitter that they weren't able to make a demo on Stadia available at this time. So it doesn't mean that they didn't try, but it clearly just wasn't their priority. I'm sure they're crunching during COVID and the pandemic to get this out. Again, we said with Cyberpunk to as many places as possible.
They'll be focusing on getting the game working. A demo is like... A demo actually is a surprising amount of work to get a cohesive slice of the game.
Yeah. Because it needs to be fun, intriguing, but not show all the cards, essentially, within like a certain time frame. You're totally right there. A big part for me with this particular title, with them not being a demo, remember on Stadia, if you have the cash in your bank, you can obviously play it for 2 hours and refund it.
You can have your own demo.
You've got your own demo. It might not be that vertical slice you was mentioning there, Richie, but you can definitely do that. I personally will probably be checking this demo out on other platforms just to tickle,
I think I will
tickle
be.
my fancy.
Well, that's it. Because I'm currently quite cold on this at the moment, and I know a lot of people are interested in it. I think I will give the demo a go when it drops on probably my PS5 because I can. So this is the good thing about demos, is why I do like them, because if there's a game you're not sure about, you can give it a go.
Yeah, because you and me both played the Avengers demo. Beta, which a beta dropping only a month before game launch. It's not a beta. It's very much the game's finished. We're just putting it out there for people to get some early review impressions.
The beta actually sold me on that game, because on the run up to the beta, I was pretty not looking forward to Avengers at all, and ultimately I reversed my decision after the beta.
Yeah,
story campaign is good. I think the rest was a bit.
Yeah, well, we've got some more talk on Avengers in it. Don't worry. Yeah. But in terms of Outriders, again, it goes back to the annoying thing where it's on other platforms, and you and me, two avid Stadia fans, are now going to try it on one of their competitions, like arguably their biggest competition in PlayStation. We're going to go switch in our PS5s and play it there, and then there's that. If you put that out to the public, how many people are then going to try it on the PS5s or Xboxes and go, I'll just play it here? because they might try the demo out with a friend who only has a PlayStation. The risk there is, why don't you come play with me on Stadia? And the counter argument is, well, we played the demo on PlayStation. Why don't we just keep playing here?
Yeah.
And then you're losing sales by not having something everybody else has.
There's a perfect hypothetical there. So me and you are going to play on PlayStation 5. Let's say one of our other friends who only plays on PlayStation 5 jumps in with us, and then we say, actually, we want all three of us play through this campaign together. The sales on PlayStation 5 then.
Yeah, because we're not going to want to jump into the game with just the two of us when we've got a friend who's going to be losing out because he doesn't have Stadia. And I know the argument there is, why doesn't he just get Stadia? He's the one of the three. That's not how it works.
Because then if he wants to play on his TV, he has to fork out about another 60, 70 quid for a Premier Edition on top of the price of the game to play one game with us, where we also already have the platform.
Yeah.
There's your reason.
But I suppose another caveat to this story, Richie, is Outriders is coming with cross-play with PC. So, which is great, I think, to get extra kind of that user base, which we've said many, many times for multiplayer titles. It needs that influx from a wider audience, and PC does that massively. We've mentioned in previous episodes about Crater is going to see a massive boost once it goes on the Epic Games Store in March. So, yeah, well, I think we'll put a pin in Outriders. We'll definitely watch it. I think the demo is available in March, so we've got just a couple of weeks or so to wait until that one.
I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we definitely will, and I hope, because we are going into a bit of a drought right now, I hope it does actually change my impressions of it, and hopefully the reviews will come out and it'll be reviewed quite heavily.
I kind of do hope that it changes my opinions, because I like to see good games come to the platform. But I'm at the moment not in any desperate need for a big new title, because I've got a decent backlog that I'm slowly working through. Like, just finished Rise, now want the Control, I've got Shadow, Tomb Raider queued up. I've still got Immortal Phoenix Rising to look into. So I've got games. I'm fine. Games. Yeah.
It's really interesting because it's been a while since I've played a third-person shooter, and with it being Square Enix, if it fits in with the Avengers model, because I do actually quite enjoy the Avengers model. So we'll see. So we'll check out the demo, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know what your thoughts are on the demo when you get your hands on it. If you're playing on other platforms, and how you're influenced by these demos, and if they do impact your purchasing decision. Because they are important, and it is a shame that it's not on Stadia, because they've done so well with demos in the past with Pac-Man and Humankind. And Immortals Phoenix Rising we saw as well. It's a great place to get a demo, because we've said before, you don't need to download it. You don't need to make that. Like when we go and try Outriders, Richie, we're going to have to download a 20 gig demo, and that's going to take time.
That's one of the biggest reasons why, even if I'd prefer to play it on Stadia, because the PS5's hard drive is quite limited. Well, it's not even hard drive, SSD. No, not yet. But I've barely used it, to be honest. Control's probably the first new title, quote unquote, that I'm playing on PS5. Oh, I played Astrobot, and then then pretty much since that it's been all Stadia.
Where your bread's buttered.
Yeah.
So moving on to more talk about games, then we did hear this week, or just end of last week, Ubisoft in a press announcement. It was the earnings call. That's what I meant to say. Press announcement. They've clarified a kind of future roadmap, as all good businesses do, to say that they're not going to be focusing on AAA games in the future. So, in an earnings call, they announced their Q3 financial results. They're doing very well, as expected, when you're putting out 3 massive games at the end of the year, and Valhalla's the biggest title in the Assassin's Creed franchise in terms of purchases and hours played.
I think this is one where you have to be careful about the terminology, because the official statement is they don't want to be as reliant. It's not that they're not going to focus. Saying they're not going to focus is just that they're shelving some of the biggest franchises.
Certainly.
Where not being as reliant means they're going to also look to pad out the revenue streams elsewhere.
Yeah, so CFO Frederic Dugier mentioned that we said for a number of years that our normal template is to come with either 3 or 4 AAA games per year, and they're going to stick to that plan through fiscal year 2022. But we see that they are continuously moving from a model that used to be focused on just AAA releases to a model where we have a combination of strong releases from AAA and a strong back catalogue dynamics, but also complementing our program of new releases with free-to-play and other premium services. So I've seen some people take that in a way of, oh no, this means we're getting loads of mobile free-to-play ports.
My initial thought is Ubisoft Plus. They're going to double down on Ubisoft Plus and the Ubisoft Store and things like that, which I think makes a bit more sense because we've already talked about the ballooning cost of video game development, and a failed game, a game that doesn't land as they expected, can bankrupt a studio instantly. So diversifying your portfolio of where your revenue streams and not just relying on these big games to hit every single time you release them can mitigate the costs. So potentially, it could be a good thing for the AAAs because then you could do things like, we're not going to rush them out as quick. We're going to take longer at development, so you can like get a bit more polished in your games because they don't instantly need that money coming in because they've got money coming in from Ubisoft Plus or whatever else. So I'm choosing to see this in the positive light, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's to kind of back that up. They did say later in their call as well. In fiscal 2022, we'll continue our evolution from AAA release-centric model towards a model where AAA stands alongside new premium and free-to-play innovative experiences across platforms. These diverse experiences will feed on each other through complementary gameplay and business models. So this is kind of the Ubisoft Connect world and the Uplay Plus Ubisoft Plus all being connected and interwoven. And I think Ubisoft do it quite well, quite frankly, playing Valhalla, then Immortals, seeing everything, and having the Ubisoft Connect app to link it all together. It's been really smooth, in my opinion.
And the free-to-play innovative experiences are not. I don't think they're necessarily going to be like mobile or indies. There might be stuff from all things like Hyperscape.
Well,
I mean, Hyperscape didn't do that well.
They didn't mention Hyperscape at all.
Yeah, I don't think Hyperscape landed. I don't think Hyperscape landed well.
No.
But that sort of free-to-play model where the continuous online PvP sort of stuff, like Activision have done with Call of Duty Warzone, that's a massive hit.
Yeah, they've got an interesting model now where they still have their annual titles which make them big money, but Warzone is the kind of continual money churner in the background with cosmetics and season pass stuff. So if they're looking towards obviously their competition in a way and seeing what they can bring to the table, but. The interest to mention the back catalogue, because I do think Ubisoft have a very rich catalogue of games that we haven't seen from. I know everyone's clambering for a Splinter Cell game, and we've seen it with Stadia, with the likes of Assassin's Creed Syndicate and Unity suddenly reappearing, and they've gone back recently, obviously remastered the Ezio collection, and there's just certain titles that I can imagine they're looking at the competition, the likes of EA who are doing like Burnout Paradise remaster, and Sony doing, and Activision, doing Crash Bandicoot remasters, and thinking, we have a lot of IP we could probably utilize here and bring some nostalgia to the table.
Yeah, maybe even like a remake of like Assassin's Creed 1, but bringing your games to new platforms. That's where you can look into your back catalogue, like they are with Stadia, like they are with Luna, like they are, well, not GeForce now.
But we are hitting a kind of world where we've said before, old games aren't necessarily that old anymore, and they have a longer lifespan, and we've seen them support that with the likes of Assassin's Creed Odyssey had like a full year's DLC. We've seen it with Rainbow Six Siege, where that's in it like its 5th year and it's bigger and better than ever. They very much know how to drag a single player title out with beneficial kind of challenge. We saw it with Valhalla, Richie, with the Yuletide seasonal special thing, and we've seen other games do with like Halloween and Christmas, and Fortnite kind of demonstrates that really, really well. Makes money.
It does. Yeah, I think with the back catalogue, any game really, even towards the end of the PS3 lifespan, is probably still very playable nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
There might be certain elements where it's not graphically as good, or the polish on mechanics it maybe is feeling a bit dated. But I don't think you're going to have a terrible experience if you jumped into like Syndicate now.
Yeah, I've actually had that bug to jump back to Syndicate. We've said before, with like depending on the art style. Things like Assassin's Creed can benefit from that. We've said before Borderlands 2, which I think is rated for Stadia, the pre-sequel and stuff still.
Yeah.
That art style of Borderlands holds up massively. I personally went back and played Arkham Asylum last year. That game's 11-year-old now, and it didn't feel over a decade old to me because there's certain games that just do stand the test of time. And in a weird way, we've not mentioned it, but the success of Valheim over on Steam, like 2 million copies sold, and it's that very much is like a low res styled graphic, but people are just more. I think with Minecraft and stuff, people are just more accepting. Games don't have to be the polished gems that they could be.
I think
to do well.
As well, we've already well past the era where games would look incredibly pixelated and stuff. This is why I almost use like the PS3 era as a bit of like a benchmark. Anything from that point forwards, I think is where graphics for me matter less. And as long as you nail the gameplay, you can almost forgive the graphics. In fact, Tomb Raider, wasn't that released on PS3?
2013 Tomb Raider originally,
Yeah, and we had a blast playing that on Stadia, and that wasn't like HD. Was that HD remaster?
The version we've got on Stadia is the definitive edition. So the original Tomb Raider 2013 came out on PS3 when it was ending. Yeah. When the PS4 came out, I think the following year, they did the definitive edition on PS4, which is the version we have on Stadia now. But again, still over 7-8 year old now at this point.
Well, that's... So I think, I just going back to Ubisoft though, I think this is... I do see this as a positive move to just kind of almost like financially support themselves and not be as reliant on. Imagine if they're launching Assassin's Creed title and it flopped. How much of a hit that would take.
Obviously, and they're still going back to that model of like every 2 years, it would seem. But I'm like, even though I've finished Valhalla like 100% to the max, I'm looking forward to next month's announcement of the DLC. I think it's the Druids one first, or the Siege of Paris. I can't remember which one comes first, but I'm looking forward to jumping back in and exploring something different. So they do have good roadmaps for games with Ubisoft. They really, really do. And we've seen, I think Rainbow Six Siege is the best one. They said later in the press call announcement as well, 15 million new players in the last 12 months to which is crazy for a game that's over 5 year old, that it's getting that many new players. So it shows you when you've got a good winning formula, don't ditch it and move on. Stick with it and support it.
It's what we've mentioned. We wish FIFA would take that sort of model and just like almost just have an annual season pass where you just gives you all the renewed rosters and something, rather than having to buy a new game every year.
Also, they've said as well, Ubisoft financials indicate that games like Mario Rabbids, Kingdom Battle, Far Cry 5, The Crew, Anno 1800, which I think and older games like Just Dance, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Rainbow Six Siege are still doing meaningful numbers for the company, meaning it doesn't necessarily need to churn out multiple blockbusters to keep.
Anno's a game. Sorry? Anno's a game I'd love to see on Stadia. It's almost like Civilization, that sort of style.
So they've got obviously a great repertoire, and I personally, I know anyone who listens to the show is probably well aware that I'm a big fan of Ubisoft games, and they have that formula that just appeals to me as a gamer. I do think it's very copy and paste sometimes, and we've critiqued them for their gameplay mechanics and cutscenes sometimes. And, I'm sure in this week's SideQuest, Richie will talk a little bit about that in depth. But there's some titles that I'd still love to see ported over to Stadia. So.
I want to see them all. Bring everything. I want everything.
Bring your entire catalogue and you'll make
Choice is good. Choice is good.
It is in the world we live in now, definitely. Old games certainly aren't as old as they. So pivoting away from earnings calls, then Richie, we'll talk about other people with lots of money in the bank. A separate story this week was that the Saudi Sovereign Fund, which is a kind of public investment fund in least, have pumped $3.3 billion into Activision Blizzard, EA, and Take-Two in terms of shares. So
it must be nice to have £3.3 billion to spend on games.
I mean, I'd take like any percentage you want to put my way of that, I'll take. But they've essentially they filed it last year, and it came to light now with like earnings calls and stuff. They've got $1.3 billion in Call of Duty publisher Activision, $1 billion in FIFA's maker EA, and 3.5, which equates to about 3.5% of shareholdings, and $825 million in Grand Theft Auto publisher Take-Two. About 3.5% of the the shares. Sorry, they've also randomly, just as a side note, invested $4.4 billion in Uber, and a modest amount in a company called Novagold, which is like mining in Alaska. So quite diverse. But that's a lot of money.
With the Uber stuff, I'm guessing that's just opportunism based on because of COVID. The stocks of Uber must be absolutely tanking at the moment because no one's going anywhere. So you buy low, but you're also expecting that to recover. So you just spend a lot of money in Uber and then give it a year and suddenly you've made a lot of money.
So there is a conversation to be had here. We've referenced it offline about investment from other companies, other countries that don't necessarily fit to the capitalist world we're all familiar with. And there is a whole conversation there. We've mentioned before the Barclays Premier League in the UK with the football. They suffer with outside ownership coming in from countries that don't necessarily follow the same laws that most people would hold to humanity.
Yeah.
Let's just draw a line under that.
That's.
And there's a lot of money now coming in, and we've said it before with Chinese Tencent buying into other companies and how they have an influence over the narrative of that company now because they own shares in it.
Yeah, there's a huge, deep political conversation to be had around some of this stuff, and I don't think we are the people to tackle that.
No, we're not lawyers. We're not humanitarians. We're not, we don't want it. We're just a podcast.
This is a video game. It's not a political podcast. It's a video game podcast. So let's focus on the games.
That certainly is. But yeah, if you want to read into that, go have a look at it. But it's a lot of money coming from a big investment fund where the money is arguably made in a so positive manner. So go read into that if you want to. But essentially, the games industry is being bought up piece by piece, left, right, and center. If so inclined, go read about it because I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, Richie. I guarantee we've got at least another 10, 15 stories like this as the year trickles over about
COVID's been
left, right, and center.
It's been an interesting year for video games because COVID has actually a lot of the video game industry is growing massively because of COVID. But also, especially smaller studios or independent studios, that it's similar to what we're talking about with Ubisoft, where you're relying on your games to absolutely land. So sometimes selling shares off to get a huge influx of cash can help you survive.
You're right. But, and actually, I guess a follow-on story from that in regards to mergers and acquisitions, buyouts and stuff. I'll skip forward a few stories, Richie, to the Little Nightmares one that we've got because we played Little Nightmares over the weekend and we finished it.
Yeah.
And the news obviously came out that Tarsier Studios, who made Little Nightmares, they were recently purchased by the Embracer Group, which we covered a few podcast episodes back. Which in turn, now the game is out there in the public and it's free on Stadia Pro and such. Tarsier Studios are done with the game. The franchise. They are no longer under the Bandai Namco banner. They are owned by the Embracer Group now. And the Embracer Group, because they don't own Little Nightmares IP, the studio, rightly so, is focusing on probably something new, which in turn led to everyone thinking that this is the end for Little Nightmares, which would be quite frankly sad in my opinion after two really enjoyable games. However, the Bandai Namco have said they intend to continue with the IP, just they'll obviously have to find a different studio. But this is kind of an interesting situation that comes about from these acquisitions, that directions can change and companies that make games may no longer be making the games due to higher up buyouts and money being exchanged. So just like that. It's going to be a very different game, the next one, I'd imagine.
I know you say it's a shame if they make that with about a number 3, but in some ways I kind of don't disagree because I think about TV shows. How many times have we seen TV shows that just because they're still doing good ratings, they get churned out season after season where they're way past the point where like the vision of the show is kind of over and they're just kind of keeping it on life support. I think video games can be the same thing where sometimes if everything they've told with the Little Nightmares franchise and that world has been told, I think sometimes moving on and leaving it at 2 games can be what's best for the series.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
So it really depends on what Bandai Namco do, and especially with Tarsier Studios no longer being attached. It's a Metal Gear Solid conundrum where since Kojima's left, what does Konami do with that? Because the vision behind it is no longer there.
But it's just interesting that it wasn't really anyone's decision. Like, if you work at Tarsier Studios, great, you've been bought out, you've got probably more job stability and stuff. But now probably the passion project you've been working on, you definitively can no longer work on that. So it's not been your choice to stop working on a third entry. It's just the higher ups have just bought you out, and now all of a sudden they want to focus on their own IP. So you're quickly what if you're so ingrained in this world and you love the characters and you love working on this game, and all of a sudden you're going to be making a free to play Fortnite-esque game for Embracer Group. Instead, it's like,
Yeah. See, I don't know. I don't think you buy Tarsier Studios to go like make the next Fortnite. I think because you want to look at what the strengths of the studio are when you're buying them. So I imagine they might not be making Little Nightmares, but there'll be something similar in certain ways, whether it's in tone or mechanics or whatever it is.
It's probably just a bit bittersweet.
Yeah,
I think the way. I for one would like to see another entry in the game. I think the world of Little Nightmares, just by interpretation, leaves itself to be anything it wants to be, as long as it follows the same puzzle-solving, creepy nature. The characters aren't really that relevant. They don't talk at the end of the day, so it's not like you really have any deep-rooted relationship with them.
I mean, I kind of disagree with your reaction to certain characters in the game.
Well, you'll just go watch that if you want to find out that. It's interesting. Again, money moving, money changing hands, and it happens.
We'll see.
Following on from that, we've got EA finally confirmed their Codemasters buyout. So after the Take-Two were initially looking to buy Codemasters, maybe Take-Two could have benefited from that Saudi money a couple of months ago, Richie, and they might have been able to front the difference in cash to get Codemasters. However, EA went for it with the same cash, I guess, and they announced their official thing with a short video on Twitter saying welcome to the family. And we've mentioned it before, but that brings things like Dirt franchise, Dirt 5, which is obviously still not on Stadia, but it's out. I saw it for £27 on PlayStation yesterday. So it's on a sale everywhere else, so hopefully that'll be coming soon. Grid, which we played this past Thursday with the community, that's now under that banner. Project Cars and Formula 1 as well, and in amongst some smaller titles. So basically every racing game, including Need for Speed, which they obviously already own, and Burnout, which they already own. EA is now the sole owner, in my opinion, of everything on 4 wheels or 2 wheels.
Yeah.
Aside from Ubisoft's Crew and the other racing, like the other BMX and stuff games, the motocross, the main core franchise, which I vision as staples of the racing industry, EA owns them all. Just like that. Boosh.
Yeah. It'd be interesting what they do with these franchises, and how much freedom Codemasters get in fulfilling their own vision.
Yeah, I mean, a question I'd have for you then, Richie, is do you see any of these franchises being folded into one another? Does EA look at this thinking we want to keep all 6 racing franchises going, or does Dirt 5 eat into Need for Speed? Does Need for Speed eat into Grid? There's got to be some cross-pollination of audiences here.
Is Need for Speed even a relevant franchise anymore? Is it still going?
I mean, you can argue it's more relevant than some of the ones they've just bought.
But if
it's a more well-known name.
Just because it's a more well-known name doesn't mean it's selling. If they're not producing games and it's not selling, well, things like Grid and the Formula 1 games are.
So, it's a weird
Codemasters might be there to revive Need for Speed as franchise. I can't remember when the last time ahead of a Need for Speed game is. That's all.
There was one out. There was the one Heat. Heat was last year, not last year. Yeah, before. Need for Speed Heat.
All right, yeah. Heat was last year, and Payback was 2017, and Need for Speed was 2015. So yeah, they're steadily coming out, but
are they making?
I don't know. They're completely off my radar.
I feel like Heat still made it into the top 10 sales, whereas I don't feel like I ever really see franchises like Grid or Dirt 5 really reach like the top 5 over like Mario Kart and Last of Us and all those type of games. Like you never really see it consistently up there with other titles. But there is obviously an audience for it because it's a sport franchise that people follow all over the world.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Metacritic scores now for Need for Speed Heat, and it's kind of low to mid 70s.
So it's good.
So it's good, but maybe like having Codemasters can like push that back to the 8s and the 9s.
So
yeah,
fill that fuel tank. Keep your eyes on the news.
Yeah,
we'll see some stuff come from that. Probably going to be a good while. Maybe they'll put them to work on a Star Wars game.
Yeah, it depends. We don't know what Codemasters working on. They might have got some things in the works.
Hopefully a better entry in the Micro Machines V3 franchise, Richie, because we know how much I got burned on that game. There's a throwback there.
That was terrible.
So much fun. I'd like to see another car race. Speaking of games potentially coming out then, our next star of the week is some magical coding. Our friends out there on the social web, as we say, have found coding for Stadia mentioned within some Warner Brothers franchises. So we've mentioned before, Richie, we'd imagine Stadia are having conversations with Warner Brothers Studios. Obviously, we have Mortal Kombat on Stadia. Go check out the Mortal Kombat trailer for the movie if you've not seen that. Dropped this last week. But essentially, Gotham Knights we have coming from... It's not Rocksteady, it's WB Montreal. And we have Hogwarts Legacy, the new Wizarding World of Harry Potter RPG... massive world game that they've kind of highlighted, which I think is just... Was it delayed? I feel like it was...
Yeah, I think it was delayed a couple of weeks ago, I think. So, or maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah, but I don't think they give us an actual date. But either way, within the coding, for those who are that way inclined, if you look at the website coding, it's all broken down to kind of like... I would say it's like HTML format, Richie. This is at the perfect time I would pass the story over to Tom.
Yes.
To give us a breakdown of how this works and what it could mean. Our interpretation,
Going by what our friends at Stadia Source say, apparently it's CSS. I'm guessing that's a coding language. I don't know anything about that, but either way, the word Stadia comes up.
Yeah, when you scroll down, and you can see things like PlayStation and Xbox Series X, PS4, and within the wording of that is very much the two clear words, Stadia, and then the width, height, and I guess dimensions of the inserted image. It looks like.
Yeah.
So if I was to put the game up on the Warner Brothers website and have at the bottom the PlayStation logo, the Xbox logo, the Stadia and PC logo, this could be the code to indicate that it's kind of logo gate, but in reverse coding.
Yeah.
whereas you could get that. I guess I'll throw it over to you, Richie, and just ask: do you think we will see these titles on Stadia this year? Bearing in mind we've got no big game announcements for Stadia this year, really.
I don't know. I kind of hope so. I'm not sure if it'll be this year, because I think, is Hogwarts Legacy next year now?
No, they've delayed it, but they've not said till when. So I think it was due out late summer, potentially. Maybe pushed back to Christmas.
I'm going to choose to be optimistic on this one. I think that the fact that the Stadia logo is there in code suggests that there is probably going to be an announcement coming, or at least implies that WB have some sort of relationship with Google Stadia, to the point where they're putting placeholders in their code should they decide to port a game over.
Yeah, you wouldn't do it. I mean, Nintendo Switch isn't there, and we know for a fact that Switch probably can't run either of these titles, so that probably does add a bit more evidence to suggest it could be coming.
It could be coming. And actually, now you mention that Switch isn't there, which I hadn't picked up on, that makes me even more convinced that, yes, these games are probably more likely to come. I was working on the idea of, if this is just a standard piece of code that they're putting everything, that all the potential platforms would be there, and then maybe they deactivate the ones they don't want somehow. I'm not a website builder, so I don't know how that works, but that would be my assumption. But mention that Switch isn't there,
it gives me more hope. It's got Xbox Series X, Portkey, which is Portkey Games are the ones who are porting Hogwarts Legacy, Stadia, PC.
We should point out we're looking at a very small accept.
We're not looking at the entire script.
It could be, actually, it could. Now, again, I won't go back the other way. Now you mentioned PS5. It's like, that seems unlikely that they'll miss PS5 and go to Stadia. So I'm guessing maybe Switch and PS5 come up somewhere else.
Potentially, but
I'm optimistic.
I'm optimistic, and I feel like we have to be, because with them closing Stadia Studios is obviously bad press for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
We look forward into 2021, Richie. If I was to ask you, put you on the spot right now and say, the rest of the year, game predictions, what games will we see on Stadia this year?
Yeah.
I look into an empty void where I know we've got Far Cry coming, Riders Republic, as Ubisoft have been really good in supporting.
Yeah.
FIFA 22, maybe a bit closer to launch date this year.
Hopefully on launch date this year. Yeah, don't be cowards, just do it.
But the way the industry is, and the way Stadia likes to drop games stealthily, what really is there, like, for May, June, July, August, September, October, like, what does that look like? And without these two games, like big third-party titles like Gotham Knights and Hogwarts, what is there to hold? Those tentpole games we mentioned.
Well, my expectation generally for this year, not just Stadia, is going to be a fairly quiet year. the effects of COVID are going to be starting to be felt this year in the gaming industry as projects didn't move as quickly as they could. They'll probably have months of massive amounts of disruption as they got people working from home and all that. That is probably going to impact this year and next year a lot more than it did last year, because especially on newer projects. So I think this is why, apart from Nintendo released Direct, so we actually have a roadmap from Nintendo. Are you listening, Google? Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I'm with you though. I'm looking forward, and I'm not seeing anything that's really jumping out at me at the moment on any platform, really.
Yeah, I think for me, there's the aforementioned Ratchet and Clank game. I'm expecting Sony to announce a date for Horizon Zero Dawn, which are my kind of big 2 PlayStation games of the year.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about Horizon Forbidden West. That's yeah, I'm all in on that.
Yeah,
one.
I said Zero Dawn. Well, yeah, Forbidden West. But it is very much quiet. We'll probably get our Call of Duty entry, which I'd love on Stadia, but not that I'm a Call of Duty player, but I would love it for the platform. And yeah, you've mentioned there, it is going to be quite quiet, and the impacts of COVID cannot be underestimated. We don't know what that tail effect is going to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, aside from the Ubisoft games, it is just looking a bit quiet as we head into spring time.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo have just done a massive direct, which actually I know I literally just said that I'm looking forward and I'm not seeing anything I'm interested in, but I do have Bravely Default 2 on pre-order. So
what about that Mario Golf? That do anything for you?
I imagine it's a lot of fun, but I'll probably never play it.
So what about the what was it, Legend of Zelda?
Skyward Sword.
Oh, Skyward Sword.
Skyward Sword. Yeah, I want to play Skyward Sword because it's one of the few Zelda games I haven't played, and unfortunately, it's been locked on the Wii U until now.
Get them nunchucks out. You're gonna play with the move controls.
I'm gonna give it a go, but I'll probably switch to button.
Well, a bit of a workout with all that one. So yeah,
you've got to give it a go. You've got to give it a go.
And we saw the backlash with the direct. Nintendo getting a bit of a flack for some poor announcements for a 50-minute direct as well, and we've seen Stadia be lambasted for that, and we've been critics of them as well for saying like the way they deliver this content digitally. But as we do trickle over into March 2021 now, as consumers, I'd like to know what I can play this year.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll hear some more news on that going forward. Thankfully, some games companies do give us good roadmaps, and we've had some new content this week from Elder Scrolls Online. They've been nice enough to come out with a release date for the Blackwood expansion pack. Again, another great time where we'd love to throw it over to Tom. Is probably the most avid players of this particular franchise to us. Just quoting from the article, a deal made with the Prince of Destruction comes due in Elder Scrolls Online Blackwood, continuing the Gates of Oblivion adventure. Pre-orders are up on Stadia now. You can purchase the collection, $49.99. The Blackwood CE collection, that is Collector's Edition CE, $69.99. Or you can just do an upgrade, because obviously everybody should have claimed it for free on Pro. The upgrade is only £32. Explore Imperial cities and murky bogs. Uncover Mehrunes, apologies if I say that wrong, Mehrunes, Dagon's sinister plot, and never adventure alone with companions. I did see somewhere, is it Druids? Are they the big thing, or is that Baldur's Gate?
Yeah, I think you think of Baldur's Gate because the new Baldur's Gate announcement does feature Druids, but for that game, I'm kind of waiting until it gets closer to the final release before I give it too much attention at this point. And I was going to watch the panel from Hell, but it's like 2 hours long.
How do I always get Baldur's Gate and Elder Scrolls mixed up?
I don't know. They're very different games.
Is it? I know. I think it's something about just that high fantasy, and all of the trailers are very well rendered, like CGI, epic battles and sorcery and fights going on. And I think my brain just melds them all too. So apologies to any fans of either franchise out there. But if you are a fan of Elder Scrolls Online, go check that out. It's coming out imminently. Pre-order it if you would like to. 1st of June. It's due. A game I can talk about, though, a little bit more in depth, Richie, is Avengers, Square Enix. They finally announced their kind of roadmap for the next bit of content, which is the Hawkeye DLC. We knew about, because it was part of the kind of Kate Bishop announcement. All of this was supposed to come out last year, just before Christmas. Obviously, it was delayed, and here we are now at the end of February, finding out that it's going to be launching March 18th alongside the next-gen versions, so PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are getting their versions dropped too, with free upgrades for last gen. Stadia, of course, will just stick on its current version, probably get a few patches and updates. But they've dropped it, so it's called Future Imperfect, and it continues the story from Kate Bishop on the hunt for Nick Fury with some kind of time travel, timey-wimey action going on there. And there's going to be new villains, new characters, and shoot. They'll jump in with a new character. Obviously, Clint Barton, you'll movies. They've got in the article, unmatched archer with unerring precision enlists the help of his friends and fellow Avengers to protect an apocalyptic future ruled by Maestro. Ever heard of him, Richie? In the wider Marvel universe, a mad and clever villain who was once called the Hulk. That's right, Richie. Hulk, but he's got a beard and he wears some kind of bone necklace.
Okay.
That scare you or intrigue you?
The lore intrigues me. The game does not.
It's basically, I think, in the future world where every other hero's died and the Hulk has obviously outlasted them all because he's insanely strong, and he's got that merged Bruce Banner, so he's really smart and intelligent, but he's also the ruler of the planet as the last
Professor Hulk. He's like a Professor Hulk,
but he's like a tribal ruler instead. So, in addition to the new superhero, new chapter, the game's ongoing Avengers initiative story in Operation Future Perfect continues with new villains. Basically, I hope it doesn't end up being fighting the Hulk in a different skin. Because I've fought Abomination so many times, and I've fought Taskmaster so many times. Yeah. Great at getting a new character. This game still needs more endgame content, as I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah, my thing is the whole structure of the online stuff is not great. It's kind of bland. Adding more characters isn't doing it for me. So
yeah, and they know that too. And interestingly enough, we've still heard nothing about the rumored Black Panther Wakanda stuff. And it's weird that they would come out this year, finally tell us the date for the next gen version and Hawkeye.
Yeah.
But with no teaser for what's next. They didn't do anything. They didn't end their War Table announcement with, and keep tuned for next quarter when we'll drop the next thing. And I think games as a service, we saw this happen to Anthem. If you go radio silent for too long, the audience kind of gets pulled feet.
I wouldn't say they're going radio silent. We're talking about it right now.
No, I mean for the future. Like if they're not telling us what happens after March 18th.
Maybe they just want to get Hawkeye out first and then they'll switch on the Black Panther stuff.
Yeah. Again, development impacted because we know the last gen versions were supposed to launch with the consoles. The PS5 version was supposed to be out last November, so obviously everything's taking a knock-on domino effect now. So maybe we'll jump back in on a Thursday night live stream, Richie. Level up some characters still. Yeah. Final news stories for the week, ladies and gentlemen. We got some confirmation of Welcome to Elk, which we mentioned on last week's podcast. We had an ESRB rating. That's officially dropped as part of the Stadia community blog now. So we can see that game coming across probably in did they give a date? I or not. It was part of the community blog post. I'll just confirm for you. Not coming soon.
No, it's coming soon.
Still coming soon, which seems weird to drop it on the blog post and not give a date, but
it's very unstadia-like.
Yeah. And then, as part of the same blog post this past Friday, we also got an announcement of a place for the unwilling, which actually caught us by surprise because it didn't get an ESRB rating. However, that does have a date of February 23rd. So at the time of listening to this, it probably comes out tomorrow or yesterday or today, depending on when you are listening to this show. A Place for the Unwilling is a branching narrative adventure set in the final 21 days of a dying city. Every decision you make will help shape your surroundings and the city's fate. However, the clock is ticking, and the city carries on with or without you. Speaking to everyone from eerie politicians to child anarchists, work as a trader, socialise, explore the town freely, and play a role in the city's hierarchy. Open world experience where player's choice really does count. Set in a Dickensian world of colour and eldritch nightmares. Have to do anything for you, Richie?
It's not jumping out at me, to be honest. It's probably perfectly fine if you're into that sort of game. I bet you it's one of them. If I was in the right mood, I'd really enjoy it.
Yeah, you meet some interesting characters. It reminds me of the Outer Worlds, but not in space. Yeah. It's got like that kind of like eerie alternate universe vibe, like it says there, Dickensian world of eldritch nightmare.
Yeah.
So there's obviously going to be some interesting characters, but it's very much a a text narrative adventure from all Pixel Games, not All Pixel. But yeah, I guess we'll be able to see how that review some point soon. It does say all story, no puzzles, no combat, no mini maps, no quest markers. Story is everything. Wander around the city, meet its inhabitants, and discover what happened. Of kind of reverse psychology marketing there. Doesn't have this, doesn't have that, doesn't have any trope you're familiar with using in a game.
We've taken most of the game out of it, left the story. I mean, it could work. There's some very good narrative-only games out there.
Yeah, you've got to try something different nowadays to me.
Yeah.
It does mention that it covers themes of inequality, isolation, cosmic horror. Oh. Cosmic horror. But yeah, some new games come to Stadia. Again, not quite big AAA titles, but we do have a slow, steady trickle of games. We'll probably get some more this week as part of the announcements. But every week's a good week when you get game announcements.
Yeah.
Especially because that allows us to do a podcast.
Yeah, makes our lives easier.
It does make our lives easier. So don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Share us with your friends and jump in the Discord chat and talk all things games with us in there. Because if you haven't done so already, we've got a great budding community out there talking all things Stadia gaming and just generally what we get up to in our day-to-day lives. So head out over to the Discord, which you can find in the description below. That's pretty much it for this week. Richie, any final thoughts? Or would you like to tell the people what we're going to be discussing on this week's SideQuest episode?
So, on this week's SideQuest, we are going to be doing an Assassin's Creed Valhalla spoiler cast. So we're going to be deep dive into that game. We've never actually done a spoiler cast, so this is going to be fun.
We haven't. We discussed it pre-show, and it's very rare that I think we've both finished games of that length at a similar time to each other. So I'm looking forward to it. So get your axes ready, get your mead, join us on the side quest.
Get them horses uphill.
That's impossible, Richie. That's impossible in a Ubisoft title.
The patrons might just be getting to the top of the hill by the time it comes out for everyone else.
Exactly. Actually, funny saying that though, the creatures that you ride in Immortals Phoenix Rising are a lot better at going uphill. They actually even have a sprint functionality that's very, very quick. So
it's a mythical, that's why.
But yeah, it's mythical maybe. So yeah, check out Sounds of Stadia SideQuest, our topical show that drops every week on patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia every Sunday. Or if you'd like to wait for free feeds, it does drop every Friday over on youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia, where you're probably watching our faces right now. That's been all the Stadia news this week. My name's been Chris.
I've been Richie.
That would have been Tom, but he'll be back next week. Keep tunes. Keep it locked. Check us out on our live stream this Thursday where we'll be playing more games. Jump in and play with us. But that's everything this week. We've been Sounds of Stadia. Take care. Have a great week. Game on. Bye.
Bye.